20 years after, Ikeja bomb blast survivors recall experience, burial site unkempt. Denmark pulls troops out as Mali junta takes swipe at France. Russia keeps door open after US rejects key security demands. Well, many thanks for staying with us. I am Justin Akadonye. President Muhammadu Buhari has directed the military and other security agencies to deal decisively with any person or group undermining efforts at achieving sustainable peace, security, and stability in the country. The president, however, assured that the country will ultimately defeat the forces of evil. According to the special advisor to the president on media and publicity, Femi Adesina, President Buhari said he has given security agents specific orders not to spare any bandit or terrorist threatening the lives and property of innocent Nigerians. According to Adesina, Buhari commiserated with the government and people of Sokoto State over the recent loss of lives and property as a result of outrageous attacks by bandits and other criminal gangs. He said the president assured the people that he remains unrelenting in his resolve to put an end to heinous criminal activities in the state and other parts of the country. In the meantime, the president has cancelled his proposed one-day official visit to Zamfara State. The president traveled to the northwest state to condole with the government and people of the state over the recent killing of 58 persons in Anka and Bukuyum local government areas. According to the governor, Bello Matawale, the president cancelled the visit due to poor weather condition. The president was in Sokoto State to commission a cement plant owned by Boer Group. He inaugurated a 3 million metric tons per annum plant and 48 megawatts power plant, lauding the company for believing in Nigeria and being the largest employer of labor in the northwest region of the country. The president pledged that his administration would continue to support serious investors to set up businesses. He recounted that in 1985, as the then head of state, he was at the same location to commission the second line of the facility. Now, workers at the Police Service Commission have shut down their headquarters Abuja in a protest over an alleged takeover of the ongoing recruitment of 10,000 constables by the force headquarters. The protesting workers forced the permanent secretary, William Alo, and directors out of their offices as they declared a 3-day warning strike with effect. Immediately, the workers declared a showdown with the commission management led by Musilium Smith, a retired Inspector General of Police whom they accused of surrendering the PSC constitutional mandate to the police. It was a morning Sunday 30 years ago when hundreds of lives perished at Okeafa Canal in Isolo area of Lagos State after a series of bombs detonated on their own from the Nigerian Army 9th Brigade Armory in Ikeja. 20 years later, Lagosians remember these incidents as some survivors called the government for support. PlusTvAfrica Ngozi Ika or HAC has more in this report.
It's 20 years ever since the bomb blast at the Ikeja cantonment occurred in Lagos, which took the life of thousands of people, thousands of children being separated from their families, and a lot of people rendered homeless in Lagos. Over there is the burial ground where a lot of people that were victims of that incident were buried. These are few names out of the many that died at the incident.
In the past, a memorial holds here yearly, but that's not to be now. Alhaji Omale comes here every year to honor his 10-year-old son, who was a victim of the bomb blast.
What happened for that time? The bomb blast happened to Ikeja cantonment. As it happened there, our children and our father, our mother, they run from Ikeja, reach Mafluku, from Mafluku to Airport Road, from Airport Road to Kana.
Omale does not seem to have fully recovered from the trauma of losing his son.
My pikin died, he entered the canal. So as he entered the canal, nothing I can do. By that time, I no get job. So they bury him too here. And since there, the beg governor of Lagos State, make he help us settle this matter for us. Some of our neighbor, they get stroke. Some of them die. As I talk to you now, my wife is late. Now, I beg government to help us, Lagos State government to help us.
20 years is a long time for people to forget some incidents. However, on the streets, some recount their experiences as fresh as can be.
I was at around that very year when we started hearing the bow. I was saying, what is happening? What's happening? So later we started seeing the flame, the light. It's not an easy task, so we have to pick risks, me and my friends. So I don't even remember my family.
The day that the explosion took place at the Ikeja cantonment, we felt it was at Ogba. We felt it was happening around Ogba because it went far. So much so that some houses had cracks. Just to tell you how terrible. We were running here, there, until maybe after about an hour before we got to know that the blast was happening at the Ikeja cantonment.
I left here around 5 o'clock and I go to K2. When I reach K2, around 7 o'clock, I start hearing boah, boah. I don't even expect that it's Maryland because I just left from Maryland. So I think that's around Lagos Island. But people start running. The people are in Maryland running to Ojota. Ojota people running to K2, K2 to my 12 to Korodu. In fact, people are running to Sagamu.
For PlusTvAfrica, Ngozika or HSC.
A traditional ruler in Ogun State, the Lagodo of Agudo in Ewekoro local government area, has been assassinated by suspected hoodlums in the community. 3 persons said to be the deceased monarch's friends were also burnt to ashes. Our correspondent in Ogun State, Habibat Ajayi, reports.
Palatable tension grips Agudo community. The town is deserted as many are fled to safety. Schools are also deserted, but a barricade of burnt tires is indicative of a crisis. We gathered that there had been crisis over the leadership of the community between 2 sections of Egbaland. The police public relations officer in Ogun State confirms the killing of a monarch and others by hoodlums. He says no suspect has been arrested so far.
We had an information that the reigning Obadiah came he was in the village when some people who are yet to be known, they attacked the Oba, and the Oba was killed. They did not stop at that. They set his corpse ablaze right in his vehicle. We are yet to make arrest since the place is deserted, like I've told you earlier on. But we are on the trail of those who carried out that dastardly act. They cannot go upon it. Let me tell you one thing. Such heinous crime cannot be perpetrated here in Ogun State without the perpetrator being arrested.
He also wants citizens to desist from taking laws into their hands.
The best interest of anybody for you to resort to self-help, it doesn't pay, is barbaric, and it is primitive. Whatever might be your grievances, there is laid down procedure. You can approach the court of law. Let the court adjudicate on any matter that you feel aggrieved about.
The State Traditional Council is yet to make an official statement on the incident, but the police assures that perpetrators will not go unpunished.
From Ogun straight now to Ekiti State, where 7 out of 8 All Progressives Congress governorship aspirants have demanded the suspension of the ongoing primaries in the state. The aspirants are protesting alleged irregularities in the conduct of party primaries. They thronged the party secretariat in Ado-Ekiti with their supporters, claiming the process has been manipulated to favor Abiodun Oyebanji, who is that Governor Kayode Fayemi's preferred choice. They also accused the superintendent officials of distributing voting materials earlier than scheduled with a sinister objective to give a sole aspirant an edge.
He had already given these people all the election materials.
they are doing whatever they like with the result it's supporters of one of the aspirants. For how long are we going to continue with this kind of thing in Nigeria? So there is no election going on anywhere in Ekiti State. The whole process is a farce. There's nothing going on anywhere in Ekiti State. It's only the supporters of one of the aspirants, Mr. Biodun Oyebanji, that has all the materials for the election.
If they want to fail in June 18, or if they don't want to fail June 18, they need to stop whatever they are doing now and let us reorganize, recompose the list of people that are going to conduct this election, and then we go to the field and do the election.
The summary of everything we are saying is that the electoral process has been hijacked by officials of Ekiti State government. The process has been hijacked from the election committee that was set up in Abuja, that was sent to Ekiti. They are not the ones in charge. People both said that the results of this primary election would be written. We all thought it was a joke because we thought people in government here were too civilized to do that. That was our thought. But this money is playing out. Election materials, sensitive election materials that were meant to be distributed at this secretariat before 8 a.m. this morning in the presence of aspirants or their agents were distributed between 10 p.m. and 12 midnight last night.
Well, staying with election matters, the Igbos are ready and better prepared for the presidency. Now, so says the President General of the Ohanese and Igbo Cultural Organization, George Obiozo. Obiozo claims the Southwest, South, and North have all produced Nigeria's president and vice president since 1999, with only the Igbos left out. He insists Igbos have, over the years, fully supported other regions that produced the country's leadership in the past, and still must have its turn in the presidency. Well, back here in Lagos, the governor, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, says the person who will succeed President Muhammadu Buhari should be able to continue from where he will stop next year and put in the work required to make Nigeria a truly unstoppable force among nations. Sanwo-Olu stated this today during the inauguration of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu movement in Lagos. PlusTvAfrica correspondent Love Ikukoye-Dokun reports that Sanwo-Olu also enjoined everyone to get their PVCs and vote right in the coming election.
It's not a campaign, neither is it a carnival. Rather, it is the inauguration of the Working Committee for the actualization of the presidential ambition of the national leader of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The movement is set up to mobilize support across the country for Tinubu ahead of the 2023 general elections.
Mandate we shall stand. On your mandate, on your mandate, on your mandate we shall stand.
Speaker after speaker bring to the fore the qualities they believe Tinubu possess for the job.
The real work is to get Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu first as the flag bearer of our party, and then to get him installed as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
We all know for sure that when he came on board, Lagos State was generating like 600 million per annum. And he brought in his expertise. And with that, right now, we are generating over 30 billion naira every month.
In his keynote address, tagged "Choosing Rightly to Serve Nigeria," the Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu expresses worry over the myriad of challenges bedeviling the nation, but holds strongly that the man Nigeria needs to take over from President Muhammadu Buhari must be one capable of changing the narratives.
That person is the true person that we believe can help us ensure the legacy that our current president will be leaving behind. We'll take it to a level that will be new lights and new heights that we've never seen before. That person is Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
He charges members of the ABAT committee to go out and encourage the people to obtain their voters' card to be able to exercise their franchise.
Let us go out there and encourage our people, first, to ensure that they have the ability to vote, to cast their vote. Let's go out and ensure that they have a voter's card so that they can be part of the next journey when we're conducting the election next year.
Sawolu maintains that the choice of who becomes Nigeria's next president is critical and mustn't be left to speculation or permutation. From Lagos, Live Ikuku Oyedoku, reporting for Plus TV Africa.
The House of Representatives Special Committee on Amendment of the 1999 Constitution has rejected a bill seeking to confer immunity on presiding officers of the National Assembly and judicial officers. The presiding officers of the National Assembly are Senate President, Deputy Senate President, Speaker of the House of Representatives, and Deputy Speaker of the House. The bill, sponsored by Segun Odebumi, is titled An Act to Alter Section 308 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, to extend immunity to cover presiding officers of the legislative institutions. A similar bill was introduced in the 8th Assembly by the then minority leader Leo Ogar. The bill was, however, rejected by the lawmakers. Odebumi is the sponsor of the controversial National Broadcasting Commission Bill and the Nigerian Press Council Bill. He also chaired the committee that approved the suspension of Twitter by the federal government. In another development, the House of Representatives has urged the federal government to strongly condemn the coups in some part of West Africa, impose strong sanctions, and mobilize other nations and stakeholders to do the same. Now, these follow the adoption of a motion of urgent public importance by Julius Ihovere, who decried a trend of military coups, describing the most recent in Burkina Faso as being part of a resurgence of a coup culture in West Africa. The lawmaker said if the trend is not immediately checked, it could erode democratic achievement and distort the emerging culture of constitutionalism. He added that it would promote opportunistic and undemocratic actors in the region and, by extension, the continent.
Further note that for the fourth time in only 6 months, coups d'etat have precipitated the transfer of power in West Africa, most recently in Mali with the overthrow of President Ibrahim Keita, in Chad with the takeover of power by the military following the death of President Idriss Deby, in Guinea with the overthrow of President Alpha Condé, and in Burkina Faso a few days ago with the overthrow of President Roch Kabore. Also notes that this illegal takeover of power from democratically elected governments violates several national constitutions, international conventions and protocols established by multilateral organizations, donors and development partners.
The people are suffering. The manner of bad leadership that is pervading the African continent is something that we must look into. While we are against military coup, it is now time for our leaders to live up to expectation. It is now time for our leaders to ensure that the people that they lead, that they are giving the effective, good governance.
The worst form of democracy is far better than a benevolent dictatorship. So as such, we should always strive to jealously guard and protect our hard-earned democracy, especially in the West African sub-region.
Now, following the recent unrest in some part of the African continent overtaken by the military power, the Director General of the Nigeria Institute of International Affairs, Professor Ehosa Osage, has blamed the incessant military roles on the Sahel region on extremism interference. Professor Odaye was of the view that Nigeria has earned the credibility to lead in exemplifying democracy since the end of the country's military rule. Jacinta Obuku has more.
What is the world without its second largest and second most populous continent, Africa? Let's talk about African politics. And you will agree with me that with the recent wave of coups in some countries, there is need to begin to raise questions, concerns, and conversations as to why and how to tackle the deep-seated menace in Africa.
Throughout the ages, there have always been ups and downs with democratic regimes in Africa. But the continent has also tasted and recorded successful democratic rules to date. Take Burkina Faso, for instance. Roch Marc Christian Kabore was elected president in the November 2015 general election, winning a majority in the first round of voting. Upon taking office, he became the first non-interim president in 49 years without any past ties to the military until now. More worrisome is the reaction of citizens to the recent military takeover. The jubilation and celebration among citizens of these countries could suggest the fall of democracy and acceptance of military rule. We had an exclusive chat with the Director General of the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, Professor Ehosa Osage, on the reason the dirty political games in Africa have persisted. He linked the crisis to the extremism in the Sahel region, but opined that it was not enough reason for military overthrow.
The people are at the receiving end, of these atrocious, situations. But, does that then warrant the military taking control unconstitutionally of the reins of power? I'm sure that, those who have had the experience of democracy and the experience of authoritarian regimes, especially those associated with the military, know the difference.
In Chad, under the Chadian law, the Speaker of Parliament should have become president, but a military council stepped in and dissolved Parliament in the name of ensuring stability. In Guinea, Special Forces Commander Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya led a coup in September 2021 against President Alpha Condé, saying he acted because of poverty and corruption in the coastal state. And in Mali, the coup followed weeks of anti-government protests over rising insecurity, alleged corruption, and a failing economy. Professor Osage pointed that international organizations and civil society have a great role to play to ensure these countries return to constitutional order.
One hopes that the major powers in all of these international organizations that, have the interests of these countries at heart would engage, civil society and not state forces.
A country like Nigeria, having returned to civilian rule on 29 May 1999, is arguably not perfect. But according to the NIIA boss, Nigeria still has the credibility to show other countries in the continent the way to go in making democracy work.
Nigeria's moral authority has been strengthened and enhanced by the democratic, stability that the country has enjoyed. And Nigerians themselves realize, that in comparison to non-democratic regimes that we had in the past, nothing really compares. It's democracy. And so when Nigeria has these kinds of interventions, the interventions are with very strong conviction. Nigeria has the credibility, to say to people that this is the way to go.
On his final words, he said no conversation to curb crisis without the proper involvement of any country's citizenry will make sense.
We must look inwards. We must engage the people. We must engage civil society. Governance is no longer simply the monopoly of governments only. There are notions of co-governance. We must also find out what these people want. And I think the experience in Sudan has taught us very well that you can no longer take the people for granted.
The thrust here is that though the quality of Africa's democracies are uneven, shallow and compromised, however, it could get better when all hands are on deck. Jacinta Ubiuku for Plus TV Africa.
Talking labor matters now, the Minister of Labor and Employment, Chris Ngige, is confident that the federal government remains committed to closing unemployment through its nationwide training for the youths. In a speech delivered by the project coordinator in the Federal Ministry of Labor and Employment, Oladipupo Abayomi, Ngige said though the first batch of the training was done in geopolitical zones, the second training will reach more youths as it will now be done in every state of the Federation. He urged beneficiaries of the 2021 nationwide training in the Southwest to use what they had learned to touch lives. The federal government, through the Ministry of Labor and Employment, is to bridge the unemployment gap in the country through skills acquisition. Now, labor leaders and activists stormed the streets of Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, to protest the planned hike in price of petrol. They cautioned the federal government against going ahead with the plan as it would add to the suffering of Nigerians. The union accused the APC government of not fulfilling its promises of reduction in price of PMS.
Nigerian workers are not being paid on the basis of international pricing model. So therefore, there's no basis of charging Nigerian workers and the poor people to pay for petrol, by making use of international pricing model. So we want that abnormality to be resolved. And these are the things that we think all of this can be done, without ordinarily, without inflicting pain on it. But this can only be so only if our government is committed to reverse the policies of the regulation.
We are likely to have a situation whereby our graduates, our children from various universities will be able to get good employment. But a government that is so insensitive, who has continued to see the plight of Nigeria, what do we think of such a government? Such a government is not supposed to be in place. So therefore, as Nigerians, we are saying that we are totally against any form of increase in the price of oil in Nigeria.
You're still watching News Now on Plus TV Africa. Coming up next is Street Views.
That is not good for the government to do that anyway. That is what I felt. Because in a forest, you must have a big monkey there. Understand? In a group of people, you must have one that is bad. Not everybody is bad. If you find a school that is not capable of holding children, it is to close down that school and leave others carry on their business.
My validation on the issue of Hanifa's death is actually medicine after death. Now that the Kano State government is requesting for maybe the licenses of private school, really, but to me, it should have been done in a different way. This thing should have been put in place before now. And to me, as a parent, I felt the pain of the mother, like watching your child go through that pain and being murdered just like that. No, it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. Justice should be given.
No. We cannot take justice that way, because it is the fingers that sin that should be prosecuted. And if the other schools can meet up with criteria and conditions of their services, I think they should be allowed to exist.
Ahead on news now, Sudan shuts border with Central African Republic. Details when we return to join us again.
Nigeria's Niger Delta region, from where the black gold fuels Africa's largest economy, where the lines between wealth and poverty has never been thinner. Conflicts, poverty, insecurity, and environmental challenges daily confront the region. How can the Niger Delta story be changed for the better?
Join Mamude Akuga at 9 p.m. every Friday evening on PlusTvAfrica as he probes deep in search of solutions.
Inside the Niger Delta with Mamude Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
Welcome back to other parts of the continent now. Reports say Burkina Faso's ousted President Roch Marc Kabore is physically well and is being held by the army in a villa, according to a source in People's Movement for Progressive MPP party. Kabore is not in a military camp but in a presidential villa under a house arrest. Kabore's state and whereabouts have been a key issue since he was overthrown by mutineering soldiers on Monday. Now, Denmark says it will start pulling its troops out of Mali after the West African country's transitional junta government insisted on an immediate withdrawal. The French and European allies had previously urged Mali to let Danish troops stay, and Mali's insistence that they go is seen as a swipe against France. Now, Denmark had sent 105 military personnel to Mali on the 18th of January to join a European Special Forces mission known as Takuba that was set up to help Mali tackle Islamist militants. The Human Rights Watch says the authorities in Egypt have been forcing Eritrean asylum seekers to return home, putting them at risk of detention and torture. The rights group has accused Egypt of carrying out arbitrary arrests and detention of asylum seekers, refugees and other migrants, as well as denying some detainees access to the UN's Refugee Agency. It has called for an end to the forced returns and says all Eritreans should have full access to asylum procedures. The more than 20,000 Eritrean refugees in Egypt have registered with the UN's Refugee Agency. Now, Sudan has shut its land border with the Central African Republic in what officials said was to manage a security threat from the neighboring country. Khartoum did not clarify the exact cause, but officials said security risks and negative practices between the borders necessitated Sudan's action in coordination with Central Africa on the one hand and with Chad on the other hand to close the borders between the two countries. Now, the Central African Republic is going through turmoil after some armed groups that control 2/3 of the country launched an attack in December 2020 to prevent the re-election of President Faustin Archange Touadéra. However, the government managed to recapture all the major cities and forced the militants to seek refuge in the forests near the border with Sudan. Now, for months, armed groups operating in the Central African Republic have been using guerrilla tactics and planting explosives along main roads to delay the advance of pro-government forces. And now to Zambia, where the country's President Hakainde Hichilema is in South Africa to discuss security and trade between the two nations. Hichilema has met with South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, who is currently the chair of the SADC, on matters of politics, defense and security cooperation. This is the 9th trip abroad from the Zambian president since taking office last August. The death toll from a storm that struck 3 southern African countries has risen to 70, according to emergency report. Tropical storm Anna made landfall on Monday in Madagascar before plowing into Mozambique and Malawi. Rescue workers and authorities across the 3 countries were still assessing the full extent of the damage. Madagascar has reported 41 dead, with 18 others killed in Mozambique and 11 in Malawi. Remnants of the storm have passed over Zimbabwe, but no deaths have been reported there. And outside of Africa now, Russia says that the United Nations is failing to address its main security concerns over Ukraine, but is ready for further talks to ease tensions. Amid continued fears that Russia could invade its pro-Western neighbor, Washington and Berlin also warned they could target the controversial Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which is said to double supplies of cheap natural gas from Russia to Germany. Relations between Russia and the West have reached their lowest point since the Cold War, after Moscow deployed tens of thousands of troops on the border of Ukraine. Russia denies any plans to invade, but last month demanded wide-ranging security guarantees from the West, including that Ukraine never be allowed to join the US-led NATO military alliance.
The main question is our clear message that we consider further NATO expansion to the east and weapons deployment, which can threaten the Russian Federation, unacceptable.
Которые могут угрожать территории Российской Федерации. Показательно, что сейчас, когда на наши предложения договориться о юридически обязывающих гарантиях в Евроатлантике,
It is telling that now, when our Western colleagues react to our proposals to reach legal security agreements in the European Atlantic region, they always urge us to follow agreed principles of security architecture in the European Atlantic region. The next moment, they say, it means NATO allowed to expand. Nobody can forbid NATO to consider an application of any other country. The principle which says you cannot improve your security at the expense of the others is being glossed over.
China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi has called for the West to heed Russia's security concerns. In a phone call with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken, Wang told Blinken that China wanted all sides in the crisis to avoid increasing tensions. He said the nation's security should not come at the cost of the security of others. Now, Wang threw his support behind the Minsk agreements signed in 2014 and 2015. But so far, the protocols have failed to achieve what they set out to do, which include to end the separatist war in eastern Ukraine, fought by proxies that Russia denies ties to. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin is expected in China next week for the start of the Winter Olympics, which open on the 4th of February. Now, protesters against COVID-19 measures who liken themselves to Jews under Nazi persecution as token global anti-Semitism. The Israeli government made this claim in a report marking International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Details in this report.
A sign held by a New York anti-vax protester shows syringes arranged as a swastika. Protesters against COVID-19 measures who liken themselves to Jews under Nazi persecution, like this woman wearing a yellow star in Rome, are fostering anti-Semitism, according to the Israeli government in a report marking International Holocaust Remembrance Day. Such tropes have become widespread, the Diaspora Affairs Ministry found. Dani Dayan chairs Israel's Yad Vashem Holocaust Memorial Museum.
We see two things that we should be very clear in combating them. One is Holocaust distortion and the other is Holocaust trivialization. The COVID brought Holocaust trivialization to a summit. Those comparisons between green passes to the yellow star, comparing Dr. Fauci to Mengele and things like that, sometimes done by politicians, by public figures, are despicable.
US and British politicians have apologized for suggesting vaccine or closure policies recalled Hitler's regime. Former Israeli Chief Rabbi Israel Meilau survived a concentration camp as a child. His parents and brother were among the 6 million Jews killed by the Nazis.
How can you compare it to a disease or to an economic problem or political problem? Nothing to compare. Please leave the word Holocaust for the Holocaust and nothing but it.
Such displays showed factual knowledge of the genocide was eroding, the report said. It added that some COVID-19 agitators have been consuming and disseminating anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that say Jews are responsible for the crisis.
Well, moving on now to the United Kingdom, all COVID-19 protocols, including the mandatory use of face masks in public places, have today been lifted in the UK. British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, who made the announcement, said the Plan B measures introduced in early December to stop the rapid spread of the Omicron variant from overwhelming health services would no longer be imposed, as face masks would not be legally enforced anywhere, and government's advice to work from home would end. While infections continue to fall, health officials say Omicron remained prevalent across the country, especially among children and the elderly. Now, earlier we spoke to two Nigerians resident in London.
Well, it's still quite early, because the announcement has only been made today, although we've all been expecting it because it's been in the news that this would be happening. But some people are still insisting, like some shops like Sainsbury's are still insisting that people wear nose masks when they come into their shops. What we don't know is what the pubs will do. So invariably, I would say what the government is saying is everyone should take responsibility, for themselves. For example, my children's school, my younger daughter's school has told us that they're still enforcing wearing of nose masks for parents and carers. The economy is going down and all that. So the government actually has no choice. But I would say the people who are really impacted are the pubs, because they've had to be shut, pretty much of the whole 2 years, since when COVID started. So I think for them, it's really going to be a welcoming news.
It's a good thing that the COVID mask and the restrictions has been lifted so that people can go back to their normal lives. Unfortunately, COVID, whatever variant is being called now, whether the Delta variant or the Omicron variant, has come to stay with us. So it's high time for us to learn to live with it, like HIV/AIDS, like malaria in Nigeria, like cold and flu that we always have here during the winter season. So it's a big relief, because if you look at the COVID impact, it really affected the hotel and tourism as well.
And up next on News Now, International Monetary Fund says Nigeria should prepare for possible turbulence. And that's in business news after the short break.
Glenfiddich means Valley of the Deer. And just as a stag loses its antlers each year, we believe in letting down our guard and seeking out uncertainty to embrace the unknown. It's how we go forward, how we grow stronger, and how we make our whiskey. Glenfiddich, where next?
And in business news, Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited, NNPC, says there is sufficient stock of petrol to meet local demand, calling on the public to desist from panic buying of the premium motor spirits PMS, also known as petrol. Group General Manager, Public Affairs Division, Garibaddin Muhammad, in a press release said NNPC is deeply committed to ensuring energy security for the country. The press release was a reaction to the recent scarcity of petrol in the country. The chairman, China Africa Business Council, CABC, Chief Dana Chen, has announced that the Chinese government is planning to invest over $300 billion in the African continent over the next 3 years. Chen started this at the Memorandum of Understanding MOU signing ceremony between LCCI and CABC held in Lagos. According to her, the move is expected to increase the volume of trade between Africa and China from the current $30 billion. And the International Monetary Fund says Nigeria and other emerging economies with high foreign currency borrowings and external funding should prepare for possible turbulence. The IMF disclosed this in a blog post titled A Disrupted Global Recovery, discussing its world economic outlook. Meanwhile, the Debt Management Office DMO says Nigeria spent a sum of $520.78 million on external debt servicing in the third quarter of 2021, rising by 74.2% compared to $298.9 million recorded in the preceding quarter. The rise in debt service is due to a large growth in the country's debt profile. And the Association of Licensed Telecommunications Operators of Nigeria, ALTON, say the situation in the United States, U.S. fifth-generation 5G spectrum allocation and the aviation industry in Nigeria are not the same. The group said it understood the concerns that industry stakeholders and customers have been expressing in relation to the ongoing debate in the U.S. over the risk of interference between 5G networks and aviation equipment. Alton said while the issues being discussed are highly technical, it is important to ensure they are explained and understood in the simplest possible terms and to highlight the major differences between the situation in the U.S. and the structures in place in Nigeria. And that's business news. Thanks for watching. I am Destiny Momo.
Thank you, Destiny. Away from business report, we'll now join our entertainment news desk for more stories.
Comedian and writer Barry Cryer has died at the age of 86. Born in Leeds in 1935, he started his career as a variety performer while appearing in a university revue. He was a star at the airwaves and the stage in his own right, including BBC radio panel shows like Just a Minute and I'm Sorry I Haven't a Clue. Cryer wrote for comedy giants including the Two Ronnies, Bob Hope, Tommy Cooper, and Morecambe and Wise. Neil Young's music is being removed from Spotify's streaming service after the singer-songwriter objected to his songs playing on the same platform that offers Joe Rogan's
And the best of sports is up next with Mukael Tinubu.
Hello and welcome to Sports News on PlusTvAfrica. Ash Barty stood one win away from ending Australia's 44-year wait for a homegrown champion after she defeated American Madison Keys 6-1, 6-3 in the Australian Open semi-final today, January 27th. The Wimbledon champion continued her remarkable run during the past fortnight in Melbourne Park and reached the final without dropping a set, losing just 21 games in 6 matches. Victory on Saturday would make Barty the first local to win the Australian Open since Chris O'Neill in 1978. Barty, who is the first Australian to reach a final at home since Leighton Hewitt in 2005, will play either 7th seed Igor Swiatek or American 27th seed Danielle Collins in the decider. Barty said she cannot wait to play on Saturday. A sculpture of NBA great Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gianna Gigi Bryant was brought on Wednesday to the helicopter crash site where they perished alongside 7 others on a hillside near Los Angeles 2 years ago. The 160-pound, 73 kg bronze statue depicts the pair wearing basketball uniforms and sharing a loving glance as Gigi holds Kobe's hand as it rests on her shoulder. Sculptor Dan Medina was on hand to greet fans who made the 1.3-mile hike to pay their respects to the sports legend. Engraved on the statue's steel pedestal are the names of all 9 victims of the early morning crash in foggy weather on January 26, 2020. It also includes an inscription of Brian's famous quote, "Heroes come and go, but legends are forever."
The reason why I came today was because when I would visit the area prior to this, I never got the sense that something was done in the right way to honor the lives that were lost. And this is my attempt to kind of do things the right way. This is all on my own. No one asked me to do it, but then I found myself with 2 beautiful designs. And for about 2 years, I was trying to figure out how I can move it forward, how I can create momentum. And I decided that on this day, the anniversary, the 2nd anniversary of the accident, I decided to bring it up for the day from sunrise to sunset and kind of create a bit of a healing process for fans. And today was special because I witnessed a lot of that. People would come up and they would leave with some sort of satisfaction, knowing that something is going to be done.
And in the NBA, Luka Doncic posted an impressive triple-double on Wednesday, helping the Dallas Mavericks to a 132-112 win over the Portland Trailblazers. The Slovenian star scored 15 points with 15 assists and 10 rebounds, making that his 6th triple-double of the season. The win for the Mavericks represents quite the comeback, having been crushed by the Golden State Warriors 130-92 on Tuesday. Another defeat for the Trailblazers. Chauncey Billups' side will now be concerned about the gap forming between themselves and the top 8 of the Western Conference.
Doncic again for Porzingis. The lob threat is there, and Porzingis. Doncic on the back to Chris. That's timing. Trailing with him. CJ probes, double, no look. Here comes Nurk, rumbling down the tracks to lay it up and in. Top CJ and Simons, eye-to-eye contact and a 2. Luka Doncic operating on Watford, moves it inside. Runs it across the paint, lays it in. Rotated back to Doncic. Rocker steps and drives, spins on Simons, flutters one up and in.
And that's all the sports news we have for you for now. Join us next time. My name is Mikhail Tinubu. Have a good night.
Well, sports news wraps it for us on the primetime bulletin. But just before we go, the main news again. 7 APC governorship aspirants have demanded suspension of primary elections in Ekiti State. But Denmark has pulled troops out as Mali junta took swipe at France. And Russia is keeping door open after United States rejected key security demands. And that's the news now. For more stories, please follow us at PlusTvAfrica on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel at PlusTvAfrica and PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle. I am Justin Akadonye. Many thanks for watching. Bye for now.
How can we have peace without justice?
Plus Politics. It's not just another political conversation, it's about keeping you in the know.
We feel that Obasanjo has a very special place in his heart for hating Ijaw people.
I think it really boils down to two things. One, trust and accountability.
Plus Politics, every weeknight at 7 p.m. on Plus TV Africa.
Welcome to The Advocate, where thought-provoking topics are discussed with no holds barred here on Plus TV Africa. We basically call a spade by its name. Today, my focus is on the behavior of the LASMA officials and what their major purpose is. Tolu, on the other hand, speaks on reforming the justice system in Nigeria. Elijah speaks on the necessity of transparency and timeliness in leadership. And finally, Olua Kayode tells us not to blame the federal government, but our state government. Sit back, and after this break, we'll be here to dissect it all. Do stay with us. What's up with LASMA? First, I must state that it's super important that citizens respect officers and officials who have been assigned by relevant authorities to serve us. However, are they really serving us? If I curate all my unpleasant experiences with the officers of the Lagos State Transport Management Authority, I'm sure I'd make another cinema hit. Why have most of these LASMA officers decided to go beyond their job roles to execute what's not within their jurisdiction? Another critical issue that baffles me here is the behavior of a LASMA officer patiently waiting for you to get into trouble and then immediately surface out of the blues to get you booked. Where's the place of service by guiding citizens appropriately on the road usage? There's this underlying behavior of extortion which is commiserate to their perception of you and the type of car you drive. I remember one of them jumping into my car at CMS and charging me 250,000 naira. And you know how it ended. When these officers are recruited and onboarded, I'm really concerned. What do they really communicate to them? Or is it just to hit the road, catch people, and whisk their cars to their HQ in Oshodi? I don't even want to recount my experience at Oshodi. It was one of my most annoying experiences. Thankfully, I had to use my social capture to get out. But on a more serious note, when are we really going to do something about the unruly acts of these LASMA officers? The people that have been put in place to serve us are now more interested in extorting from us. This is one of the many reasons why driving in Lagos is not a pleasurable experience for me and many other people out there, I want to believe. I even heard that they give them targets of defaulting vehicles and cars to apprehend. I don't know how true that is, but if that's anything to go by, is that even a proper KPI? If their success comes largely from this, then we can understand why they would rather wait for you to get into trouble than help you get out of trouble. Are we cursed from having a sane society that works? What's the way forward here? Lasma, kí ló ń ṣẹlẹ̀?
Only you can answer that.
I don't have a car, so you
It's not about having a car. I mean,
it's about the daily experience.
I'm just
about
kidding.
experience, yeah.
I'm just kidding.
You know, for me, when you look at LASMA, so many things come to mind. First of all, yes, LASMA is to be blamed, but the state agency or the government that is supposed to do the tagging and, what's it called, putting all the signages on the streets, have they done it? Because I think, I'll give you an example. Today, when I was coming, when I was leaving VI last week, I stopped by road. I'm not very confident with the roads on VI, so when I was driving into that street, I had to stop. Just when I was getting in, I stopped and I asked, is this one way? He said no. So I went ahead. Now, can I go through? He said yes. Yeah. Okay. So I went in. And when I asked, I was looking around to see other guys too, how they were reacting. Maybe, hey, this guy won't enter, go be. So I went in. When I finished, came out from where I was going, I had to ask again, can I do a U-turn and go out this way? Or it's one way? Then he told me, if you're driving, this is one way. Go through this way. Now, a typical Lagosian is in a hurry. Wouldn't stop to ask
questions. Yeah.
And there is no signal, nothing showing, indicating that, no signage showing that this is one way. So you get in there, and the LASMA official comes to you, who is probably poorly trained, who doesn't have a proper ability to, not just communicate, but do analysis, read, psychological, be able to, analyze you and see if you're saying the right thing or wrong, and just assumes that you're lying or doesn't care and just arrest you. So a lot of things come into being, and I dare say that they have, in a way, become a disappointment to the street, to the road, or road users, because they are there and they just make life miserable for many people. And what is even sad, in my view, is the way they even carry out their duty. They carry it out with, in my view, less dignity. It's so sad. I imagine having a father who works at LASMA and seeing him run after buses in such manner, being insulted in such manner. There is no dignity.
There's no dignity of service.
Of service, thank you. So they just work. They just go out and just do whatever it is that they feel they have to do. And that is wrong. So the first thing is, first thing first, we're talking LASMA. LASMA, they need to get their acts together. They need to work better.
From the leadership
and every other thing. I don't know, some will say, if you speak to some people in LASMA, they'll tell you that they don't have the full liberty to carry out what they want to do. There are some, like you suggested, all this noise about controls and buttons being pressed from different areas. That's one angle. So LASMA is failing in that aspect. The second one is the people themselves, the drivers, road users. We are so impatient, so rude, so intolerant at times that it will make an average road user lose his mind, his or her mind. Let alone the LASMA officer whose salary is small, who is under the sun, who has been battered, and who doesn't even know what his child is going to eat because the salary is not able to. So that is why there's so much road rage between the driver and, because I've been in a place, I was driving somebody and an officer stopped me. And maybe the person stopped me. I was like, someone in my car said, what's he looking for? What's he looking for? I said, relax. They have a right
They have the right to stop you. Yeah, sure.
You don't have any excuse.
No.
When you are stopped, you must wait for them to carry out. When they are now out overstepping their boundaries, then you can speak. And even that, an officer of the law, you can't refundle an officer of the law. There's a limit to the kind of words you can use to an officer of the law.
Sure.
So we need to know all these things. You need to, even no matter what they do, the best way is charge them to court. You get it? Record it, charge them to court.
That's like a...
That's a different
pocket.
I've seen people who have charged LASMA to court and they've won. Because they stood on their grounds, they had all their facts.
It's people that have time.
And exactly.
I mean, how will I leave my business? I don't have that kind of time.
It's not the time.
Elijah, before we come to Tolu, what do you think?
Well, this matter, you see, I agree with him to an extent, especially when he said
he has the right to stop you. We citizens, we don't trust government. No, I don't want to use we. Because a lot of citizens, because I'm not part of the we, I don't trust government. Even though I know they err in some area, but I choose to trust them for the betterment of our country. But a lot of citizens don't trust the government. They don't even understand what governance is.
Exactly.
And then the people in government, those people that are in government agencies, police and the last one, they themselves are abusing privileges.
Exactly.
So they don't understand this thing. Number one, like you said, uniform, we'll extend it now by extension to uniform personnel, not just last month. You don't have rights, as a uniform personnel, you don't have rights because you're a uniform personnel to handle a citizen.
Of course.
At the other hand too, the citizen too should respect you because you are respecting the law. They said governments should be of laws rather than of men. So for the issue of LASMA, education is very important. They should be properly oriented, and then they should also learn how to communicate effectively with empathy. Let me give you an instance that happened during the not during lockdown. I think after the lockdown, there was this couple, that period that they were enforcing nose masks and all these things. It's not last month this time around, it was police. I don't know if you saw the video trending. The woman was pregnant. She was in the car with her husband, and the way that they said she came down for the car to use herself. The husband was trying to help her. The next thing was the police apprehended her. Oh, you are not with your nose mask. Blah, 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 blah. The next thing, they rough-handled her, and they wanted to arrest the husband. And I have children in the car. Now, let's assume the police were doing their job, but do you have to do it without wisdom, without empathy? You see that the woman is pregnant. Why they rough-handed? It's not everything you must always want to arrest. You mustn't arrest everything. So I'll give you a scenario. I remember I was watching a documentary on the internet. A woman was a very poor woman. I think it happened in the US. She was so poor they didn't have anything to eat. So her child went. She and her child, they went to a particular shopping mall to buy something. In the process, she stole something from the mall, and the shop owner called the police. The policeman came there and saw the woman. After assessing the whole thing, he said, "Is this matter? It's not matter of arrest. It's hunger." Okay, madam. He paid for what she wanted to buy, what she stole, and told her not to do it again, and let her go away. So it's not everything you must always arrest.
Intelligence.
We should be wise. We should be wise.
Tolu,
on that note,
Tolu, what's your experience with this whole shenanigan?
Yeah, let's not start with my experience because I think you pretty much nailed. I mean, Victor, you pretty much nailed it on the head. The problem is a problem of vision. To start with, the vision is wrong. And once the vision is wrong, the execution is wrong. If someone that is supposed to protect and defend has been given a mandate to attack and punish, naturally, everything else goes wrong from there. I think if you go to SANA claims, you find that people have been told to protect and defend. So a citizen will feel safe when this is someone that has been, mandated to protect and defend them. In this case, it's different, because their agenda, their objective, their vision is a bit different. So naturally, all the things that they do just align with what they've asked them to do. I think the solution is very simple, to be quite honest. I think they need to depersonalize LASMA. I mean, 90% of the work that LASMA does can be done with technology. What is done in advanced countries. There's nothing to that work. Arresting people, taking one. I mean, those things, everything can be done with technology. So I understand some people lose their jobs. So perhaps we won't take them to the control room and all they're doing is just, operating computers. There's nothing that LASMA do. In fact, 80 to 90% of what law enforcement does in Nigeria.
In raising our kids, parents should stop playing God.
The internet is actually using the people.
But when you are looking for money to help other people, then it becomes easy.
Don't rush into marriage. I always say this. You rush in, you rush out.
Family is the bedrock of every society and the essence of life.
On Today with John and Helen, we dig deep into family values in every sense of the word.
Join us every Saturday at 9:15 a.m. on PlusTvAfrica, DSTV channel 408.
With you, we play a part in strengthening the values passed from generation to generation.
Blame the states, not the federal government. As we approach 2023 elections, tempers are high. Many are agitated, but a lot more are confused. Our state of confusion is not new. It's been with us for so long. Our election lecturer, Kunle Lawal, has taken us through a series of mind-opening revelations on this program, identifying the rights, limitations, and constitutional responsibilities of each arm and each tier of government. But let me cut the chase and address this seemingly controversial topic. Blame your state, not the FG. It will look like I'm making excuses for President Muhammadu Buhari, but far from it. His tenure is coming to an end, and historically, not much happens during election year. My concern is more towards 2023. Who takes over from him? And how do we make them, the federal government, state and local governments, accountable to us? 2022 budget summary, it goes this way. FG budgeted 17.1 trillion naira, Lagos State 1.7, Rivers State 483 billion, Kaduna State 278, Ogun State 350 billion, Adamawa 163 billion, Niger State 211 billion, and the list goes on. So let's work with a median value of 10 trillion naira budget for all states. That's estimating their budget at 300 billion for each state. Or let's even bring it out to 200 billion. That would be like 8 trillion naira. We're so concerned about FG budget performance, but how often do we query state budget performance? I saw an article about Governor Sanwo-Olu buying high-speed trains from Spanish manufacturers in Milwaukee, USA. And yes, it's been confirmed. Then I came across another report in 2016 where Governor Ambode was said to be about to buy off some trains for Lagos Red and Blue Rail line. The same one Governor Sanwo-Olu is about funding. What happened to the promise in 2016? What about the budgetary allocation? Or has it become an inappropriate appropriation bill? In Lagos, the government has the neighborhood security outfit funded from taxpayers' money. The purpose is because security is local. How well do these institutions perform? What is the quality of the intelligence they gather? States and local governments have more roads than federal governments in any state in Nigeria. So where a lot of roads are not car-worthy in Nigeria, it is most likely the fault of the states and local governments. Yet, all you hear is complain about how nothing is working in Nigeria and dump all the blame on Nigeria. By that I mean federal government. Now to the elephant in the room, the economy. The escape route is we need to move some things from the exclusive list to the concurrent list. I'm trying to sound like a politician there. Many states cannot generate revenue because they do not have access to the rich resources of their land. That is just diversionary tactics to aid the inconsistencies and dearth of ideas plaguing our state's leadership. Before the discovery of oil, states survived on agriculture, groundnut pyramids in the north, palm oil plantations in the east, cocoa in the west. Now let's take Western region. In the west, it developed with cocoa money, built Cocoa House in Ibadan, set up WNTV, built Obafemi Awolowo University, and many others. Prudent management resources. I know you might say that cannot be replicated again. Times have changed. Even abroad, in other states, states have control over resources. Truth is that I agree. States should have control over their resources. But let's look at the statistics. According to Texas Oil and Gas Association website, that's the texoga.org, Texas oil and gas industry made history when it paid $16.3 billion in taxes and state royalties in 2019, highest paid ever, or thus far. Now, that is huge. I can only imagine what Rivers State can do with that amount of money. But that's not all. Let's look at another statistics from the same state, Texas. According to data available on texasagriculture.gov, Texas government made $24 billion from agricultural products in 2017. Now, every state has control over agriculture. What are we doing in our states? We have control over traffic regulations. What do our roads look like during rush hour? How many new projects have we started to reduce travel time? I was having a conversation with a colleague and he reminded me that the last time a major project happened in Lagos was in the 80s when the Third Mainland Bridge was constructed. I stand to be corrected though, but if that's the case, isn't that over 20 years ago? And if the red and blue rail line is not completed this year as promised, what would be said of Lagos, a mega city desiring special status? Now, one last thing before I go. Do you know that according to the Constitution, provision of electricity is in the concurrent legislative list and not the exclusive? State House of Assemblies can make laws for the state with respect to electricity and the establishment in the states of electricity power stations. The generation, transmission, and distribution of electricity to areas not covered by the national grid system within that state and the establishment within that state of any authority for the promotion of management of electric power stations established by the states. There are mitigating factors, we must all agree, which the states can address if they so desire to provide electricity. But we will discuss this on another day. For now, long live the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Well, I would say is the government should try, state government specifically. Let me use Lagos as a case study.
That's it.
We spend several productive hours on the road. Whose fault is it? The federal government or the state government?
Yeah.
So if they really want to generate more revenue from the citizens who are working, the working class, they should work on reducing the number of times we spend on the road. So that will start with that.
Okay, and we hold it on there.
Victor. I mean, for me, it's very simple. I remember a classical match. I think it was El Clasico. I don't know if it was El Clasico, but it was a very, when Messi was still in Barcelona, and everybody wanted to mark Messi, but Messi was like the bait, and the person that they used, I think it was Suarez or something, right? Or either Suarez or the other guy,
player,
and he was the one scoring the goals, and so. The idea was to distract the defenders with Messi. He wasn't going to be the hit man. And then everybody goes to him, then the hit man scores. So, I agree with you. There's always this federal government, you're the problem and all of that. And people are, minute by minute, extorting and sucking the state dry. Why are we not holding our local government councillors? I say in Yaba, can't I say, what is the state of, what's the level of progress about this? And I think to conclude on this is I myself, I'm holding myself accountable. I need to start attending these meetings. When they call for it. So I leave, there are some bunch of non-intellectuals, let me drive off and go.
Let the intellectuals get involved.
I need to go to those meetings and know what is happening.
Play your own role.
Yeah.
The talk.
Do you agree with us in Imo State?
Absolutely agree with you. Just think about it. Just look at the numbers. There's only one federal government, but there are 36 states.
Yeah.
So if there's corruption going on in the federal government, it's going on 36 other places. So perhaps let's even take our eye away from that one federal government and focus on the 36 other people that can be responsible. That is not, like you said, to let the federal government go anyway, because in some cases, what's going on in that place, let's not even start. But I absolutely agree with you that people need to start getting involved in their state government, in their local government. There are things that you don't have to ask the governor for. I go sometimes and ask myself, is there a chairman in this local government? Is there the councillors? You understand? In some cases, people need to be responsible for little things. Everything is not Buhari's fault. Well, a lot of things, anyways.
Like someone said, when a husband and wife fight, it's Buhari's fault.
Yeah, everything. If I fall down, it's Buhari's fault.
When you throw dirt on the floor, it's Buhari's fault.
And the when I was putting this together, what came to mind is this man will be out in about 13 months, or let's say even 15 months, thereabouts. Who comes next will start the same accusation for another 4 or 8 years. And we the people remain the same. And I'm sure by then, the 5,000 you get, the value might have dropped to further to 2,000. So you're getting less.
It's a rinse and repeat strategy.
Yeah, exactly. So, we can go on and on, but all we can say now is thank you for your attention. while the program lasted, and we hope that our conversation resonated with you and that in some small way encouraged you to contribute to your immediate environment. Little drops of water, they say, make a mighty ocean. Don't forget that advocacy continues on our social media platforms on Facebook, PlusTvAfrica, #TheAdvocateNG, and on Twitter and Instagram. Yes, Twitter is back, at PlusTvAfrica, #TheAdvocateNG. To catch up with previous broadcasts, go to PlusTvAfrica.com/TheAdvocateNG. Do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, PlusTV Africa, and Plus TV Africa Lifestyle. Join us next week, same time on this station. Let's keep advocating for a better society. See you next time. Bye.
Lagos, the commercial capital of Nigeria with 351,861 hectares of land, is the authentic home of every tribe and tongue in Nigeria. The state, though small in landmass, is controversially the most populous state in the country. One of the neighborhoods in the state is Obalende, located in Etiosa local government area. The area is strategically a historic site because before the relocation of administrative capital from Lagos to Abuja, it was the seat of power of the military head of state, the Dodon Barrack. Historically, a Royal West African Frontier Force, predominantly Hausa men, were initially camped on the land where the famous King's College is situated. Then there was a need for the use of the land, and the Oba of Lagos was said to have pressured the governor of Lagos to resettle the Hausa men and sold the land in what is now Obalende to the British colonial masters. After resettlement in the purchased land, the Royal West Africa Frontier Force men named the place Ibiti Obalewade, which translates to the place where the king drove us to. Obalende, though crowded, is famous for its nightlife and for its suya sport, with a junction popularly called Suya Junction. For ease of administration, former governor of Lagos State, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, created additional 37 local council development areas from the existing 20 local council areas. So the current Obalende is carved out under Ikoyi Obalende Local Council Development Area. Ikorodu town is another historic location in Lagos, located in the northeast area of the state along the Lagos Lagoon and shares a boundary with Ogun State. Currently, the town houses Ikorodu local government area and 5 local council development areas. Kabiru Shotobi is the king of Ikorodu, traditionally known as Ayogbunre of Ikorodu, who ascended the throne from October 24, 2015. The name Ikorodu came about from people whose ancestors descended from the Remo stock of Yoruba tribe who came to settle on a plateau and named it Ikorodu, a shortened word from Oko Odu, which literally means Odu, farm. The current metro area population of Ikorodu in 2021 is 989,000, a 5.44% increase from 2020. Trading, farming, and manufacturing are some of the things Ikorodu is known for. Ikeja is the capital of Lagos State, formerly called Akeja. It was named after a deity of the Awori people of Ota, who originally settled there. The area was invaded for slaves until the mid-19th century. Ikeja, an abbreviation meaning of Ikorodu and Ekpe joint administration, was coined by colonial administrators for ease of administration. It is the official seat of the governor of the state, where the state secretariat is also located. It is also where the domestic and international airports are located. Its population as of 2006 census is 330,196. Ikeja is home to one of West Africa's largest gadget markets, popularly known as Computer Village, and home to a shopping mall known as Ikeja City Mall, which is the biggest mall in Lagos mainland and also has a cinema. These are some interesting places that make Lagos a world-class destination.
Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. Welcome to your favorite program, The Moment of Truth, brought to you by the Citadel Global Community Church, CGCC, formerly known as the Lateran Assembly. Today, all across the world, there are rumblings. Nations are plagued by perplexing situations. Societies are drowning in unprecedented upheavals. Cities are grappling with complex problems. Families are overwhelmed by seemingly insurmountable challenges, while multitudes in the valley of decision and people are in dire need of hope. At the same time, there is a stirring in the hearts of those who know their God and are said to do exploits, those who understand the times and the seasons and know what their nation ought to do, those with a compelling call to respond to the mandate of God in this decade. Brothers and sisters, this decade is a decade like no other. It's a decade of the designated favor of God upon his people. To accurately position ourselves for this current move of God and to be adequately equipped for the call of the hour, we must shape the decade by the word of God, which is why I'm so glad to welcome you to the Moment of Truth, a life-transforming time in the presence of God and under the influence and power of the Holy Spirit, as well as the Word of God. So invite your family, neighbors, and friends as you sit back, relax, and receive the engrafted Word of God, which is able to save your soul. Our contemplation today is prayer essential number 12. I want to encourage you to fasten your seatbelt, because you'll be flying at a very high altitude, and you're going to enjoy every bit of the flight because it's going to be a very safe flight. I want you to trust God and trust me that your prayer life is about to change. No more rhetorics, no more vain repetitions. Before you open your mouth, God will answer. While you're yet speaking, he will hear. It is not my word, it is God's word. In order to simplify this message, And to make it so easy to understand, we're going to camp around some 7 powerful texts of Scripture. These 7 powerful scriptures encapsulate 2 major things. Number 1, what to ask for when you pray. Number 2, to know the things that have been freely given to you by God even before you start praying. Do you understand this? If you ask me for what I will not give you, it's a waste of your time, because I won't. But if you know the things that have been freely given to you by God, and you stay within the boundary that Jesus explained or demonstrated at the resurrection of Lazarus, he said, I thank you, my Father, because you have heard me, and I thank you because you hear me always. If you're going to be within that boundary, there are 2 things you must know. Number 1, what to ask for when you pray. And number 2, to know the things that have been freely given to you by God. We'll take the scripture one after the other, all the 7 of them. This is like Bible study again. But I will go through this. It's not like just preaching. I want you to see precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, so that you come to the place of maturity in placing a request before God. The first text of Scripture, Matthew chapter 7, we'll begin to read from verse 7 to 11. Matthew 7, from verse 7 to 11. It reads, and I quote, ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and it will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives. Is that your experience? And he who seeks finds. And to him who knocks, it will be open. Or what man is there among you who, if his son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Any father like that? He must be stone-hearted. Or if he asks for a fish, will he give him a serpent? If you then, being evil in comparison to God, know how to give what? I can't hear you. If you then know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give what? Give good things to those who ask him. Question, what is God's definition of good things? Remember Isaiah 55, your ways are not my ways, your thoughts are not my thoughts. 2 cannot walk together except they agree. So we need to define what does God regard as good things. Let me ask you a simple question. Automobiles, are they good things? I can't hear you. Houses being built by you for you to dwell in, are they good things? I cannot hear you well. Promotion at work, are they good things? Your yes is so shallow. Johnny mercies when you travel, are they good things? Finding a faithful man to marry, is that a good thing?